Welcome to Afterthoughts, everybody. This is our recommend or refute episode. We're going to go around the table and talk about something that we each watched separately this past week and whether we would recommend or refute it. So with me is the normal cast of characters. John Garcia, how's it going?
Hey, it's going well. I am through the woods and over the river.
Are you at grandmother's house?
I think.
What's going on,
I don't
John?
know. Schlocktober has successfully rotted my brain, and I'm ready for the winter break. I've already watched a few good movies, and I am not bringing one of those to this.
Well, congratulations,
right. Thank
John.
you.
Glad that you're done with this annual national nightmare that you have put us all through.
Yes. I'm glad to have done my civic duty for society.
And Ryan King, how you doing?
Good. Yeah, out of October and watching horror movies, so I am back to watching kids movies and shitty kids movies again. So especially as they start to get more and more school off, it gets problematic around here.
I would expect going through nothing less.
Plus the writer's strike and the acting strike has left nothing new on Netflix to watch. So we're going back and watching old shit.
Yeah, you get some time to catch up on the shitty shit before you get the new shit. That's also shitty. So, hey, there you go.
It's not like Netflix is running out of options. So,
yeah.
Yeah. Cool. John, what did you watch this week? What horrible schlock have you brought before us?
Well, since I wrapped up Schlocktober, I wanted to bring one of the final movies that I watched because it was genuinely entertaining and I liked the concept of it. It didn't succeed in doing what I thought it was going to do, but I was very interested. The movie is called Deathrow Gameshow.
It's time for Live or Die. Now here's the host and star of the show, Schlocktober.
9372, how you feeling?
I'm a little nervous, Chuck.
Before you lose your head, we'll give you a chance to win some money for your family.
Well, I never thought he'd amount to anything.
Here we go.
Welcome to the wonderful world of Deathrow Gameshow.
Anyone on death row can be a contestant. Man or woman, young or old, I do not discriminate.
There are people out there who hate me.
There are people in here who hate you too.
It's a 1987 dark comedy, and I do mean dark as fuck comedy because it's all about a game show in the future. It's kind of the present where literally this dude, the main character, he is the host of the Deathrow Game Show, where they bring a bunch of people who are on death row to play games on the game show in a similar fashion to any other game show you've seen on television. So like it cold opens with a man's head in a guillotine and they're like, all right, for your life, tell us, what is this classic movie? And then they show a clip and it's a mummy who's trying to like attack a woman and she gets away and the mummy just starts going, fuck, man, I was so close, dude. Fuck, man. And the guy's like, oh, fuck, I know this one. And they're like, oh, sorry, you ran out of time. And they're like, he's like, it was Curses of the Mummy. And I was like, great gag, solid to start it off with. And then immediately they shift into, now you get the bonus round. If the guillotine cuts your head off and you can have your face land face up, you get $10,000 to your family.
Oh my God.
And like his wife is in the audience and she's like, finally, he's going to be worth something. And it's just like, Jesus Christ. This movie was fucking off to the races and super dark. The rest of it is just finding excuses to do the game show and to do really fucked up shit. I couldn't figure out for about an hour of the film if it was going to go anywhere. Like if there was going to be some deeper subtext where the game show host realizes that what he's doing is completely fucked up, that he's part of a system that's exploiting the prison system, that's also exploiting the death penalty. That's like, if it was going to try to politically say anything. But after about an hour of watching it and some of the sleazy parts that happened and some of the goofy gags that happened, I just realized it was a bunch of people just fucking around, making a dark as fuck movie for the laughs. And so I was disappointed by that. I was really sad that it didn't turn into anything with like a true arc because the main character still goes through the arc of giving up his game show host spot. He like doesn't want to do it anymore. And it opens with everybody yelling at him that he's a piece of shit. And like everybody in the street is like, fuck you. You have a terrible show. You're a terrible person. And the only reason at the end of it that he gives it all up is so that he can date a woman who has been like, you're a piece of shit and I hate you. And you're terrible at what you do. And he doesn't realize that he was wrong. He just realizes that she's way hotter than his job could ever afford him to be with somebody, I guess. I don't fucking know. They fall in with like a mobster crowd. This mobster comes to try to kill him, and it becomes this game of cat and mouse that's played for laughs, where like the mobster is just like, I won't kill you if, you get my mom on this other show. She really likes this other show that's run by your studio. And of course, the mom comes in and is dressed in like prison garb, like the stereotypical stripes. And she's like, do you think that they'll like my costume? And I'm like, I get it. This gag, they're going to get her on the show. She's going to get murdered somehow. And then this mobster is going to try to kill this guy. And that's exactly what happens. It's like every joke in between was kind of funny. And I really just wanted it to have more teeth. It felt like watching extended television in the RoboCop universe. Like that kind of like, I'd buy that for $1 kind of shit, where you're like, what the fuck? Why the fuck is anybody watching this? Who the fuck likes? But like, even the people who hated it, I thought there was commentary in it too, because they were like, I fucking hate your show. I hate you. I've been watching your show for 2 years and I fucking hate it. It's awful. It's like, why do you keep watching my show? That kind of shit.
It's every WWE fan.
Exactly. So yeah, I'd be lying if I said I didn't enjoy it and have a good time. I did laugh quite a bit. And I was like, there's so much here that could have been something better, that could have said something. And I kind of secretly hope somebody out there will watch it and be like, I could remake this and I could make this actually better. And I could make this something that's biting and has a lot more to criticize in the prison industry. But as it stands now, it's one of those like more bottom tier kind of goofy gag movies where you're like, all right, this is just mindless, dumb shit that they line up. It's like Schlock. I started the movie with the movie Schlock, and that was the exact same vibe of just like doing funny shit for the sake of it. And this was like a much darker version of that. So
interesting. Don't you think that like, it sounds like what you're saying, that the movie, just based on the premise, is commentary on society, right? Like there is something there that it's trying to say, like, humanity and like the history of like gladiator fights, or like, even like football or something like that. You could kind of compare it to that, how we as a society thrive off the pain and suffering of others who we view as less than us, or, the just kind of the fucked up nature of our entertainment in general. Is it like just only kind of saying that in pointing the camera at it and not trying to kind of make you feel bad about it? Or like, where's the more depth that you want to see there?
Yeah, it really is just pointing the camera at something that was like, this would be fun. That's where like the delineation happened for me was, halfway through, I tried to figure out, is it really trying to say anything? Because it's exposing a lot of that. It really does seem like there's all these opportunities for not just death row, but like incarcerated people to be exploited and for that to be exposed in like a darkly comedic way. And here the gag just became, how creative can we make this game show? Like, how shocking can we make this? And then it didn't really say too much beyond it, because again, its main character, his redemptive arc is he gives up the game show life because he wants to marry a hot woman. Yeah. And that's like that piece. And then even in the moments where they have death, they don't show, like, the family is saying really dark shit like, oh my God, he's finally going to be worth something to me. They don't show like the traumatized individuals behind the scenes. They talk about people that are like, your show sucks and I hate you. The only reason that a hit is put on the main character is because he executes a mob boss on live television who is in death row. And he does it in a way that it's like a gay joke. They do a gay joke to have him execute. He's like, all right, we're going to have our Vanna White basically come out and do a strip tease for you. And if you get a boner, you get electrified. Oh, and he doesn't get a boner until the host touches him and is like, well, you made it through the round. And the moment that he touches him, that guy's like, oh God. And then just like fucking explodes. And I was like, all right, that was a fucking choice. And it even has a director intro on the Blu-ray that is possibly one of the funniest intros, because it's like 10 seconds in what looks like probably a Waffle House. And the director is like, this is a movie that we made. I made it with a good group of people that I know, and we were a lot younger and a lot dumber when we made it. So I'm sorry. And enjoy. It just fucking goes right in. Nice. So I think that even he's kind of aware that like it doesn't have a whole lot to say. It was just goofing around on camera, and they had these bits they wanted to line up. But yeah.
It's a movie that uses sensational violence to entertain you, and the movie is using sensational violence to entertain you.
Yes, exactly. And there's not as much of like, I don't know. I feel like towards the end, there could have been so much other things. Like they have this chamber that they put people in for, they have a game where they put you in a box and they drain the oxygen out of it. And if you can use these little children's blocks to spell out, I want to live, then you can get out of the box. And simple premise. And they like show a whole room where they just have all the bodies from that. And like the only reason they show that room is because the one guy they try to like suffocate, he wakes up and it's the mobster who's trying to like hit the guy. He's trying to do the job. So he's like, oh, I'm going to kill him. He tried to kill me. And that's like the only thing that they show. They don't really show beyond that, like where these bodies go or if there's like other family members impacted or that. Like they never really try to like walk back some of those darker tones. So I don't know. For me, there's so much more it could have done with the latter half. Also, I didn't even mention that there's like a boob fantasy that the main character has that interrupts the whole movie where he just is like, this woman is just like, just take me now. And he's like, all right. And he just like rips her shirt open and is feeling her boobs on like a desk. Typical schlock. And
that's the free spot on the bingo card. Yeah.
Yeah. And then it does like the dream filter and it goes back to him and he's daydreaming clearly right in front of her. And she's like, what the fuck are you thinking about? And he's like, nothing, move on. Like it just does that. So like, it'll do those bits where you're like, yeah, this movie doesn't have much to say. Like beyond just being fucking goofy gags from like a boomer.
Yeah. I guess Running Man's not necessarily a great movie, but it does have some of the commentary, right? Of like the government using the violence to distract from its corruption.
Yeah.
The system, supposed to be punishing guilty people, but we see it's mainly punishing people who are just problematic to the government. And then the audience is told like, oh, once they get through the system, they're okay, right? Like this is a good system. We have it for a reason. But no, everybody dies.
Yeah.
It reminds me of a movie that I really loved in college called Death Race with Jason Statham. Did you guys see that?
I've not seen that one.
I watched it a ton when I was in college, and I haven't watched it since then. But it's like a dystopian future where they have prisoners do this like massive NASCAR race, and everybody bets money on it, and the cars have like weapons that come out of them, and they're like killing the other drivers for sport. And it's great. It's a lot of fun.
It's a good time.
At least like 20-year-old me loved it.
Yeah. So not a lot of substance to it. A lot of funny, dark gags, shock humor. And that was something that like, I just didn't really know how much of that was going to be in it. I thought it might be a lot more. It's also pretty like decent for the budget it has. The sets and like everything that they've pulled together really solid. And they sell this world of like complete absurd maximalist exploitation of the prison system. But yeah, just the fact that the characters were so hollow, it left me wanting a lot more. The mobster, even like he's just a slob, and that's like a joke that's played up constantly, is like no matter what he does, he's like in a bathroom shitting with the door open and telling people about how big the shits are. And he goes next door and he's like, there's an Italian restaurant. He like abducts a woman and takes her there and is like having her on a date. And he's talking about how he wants to marry her because he got to bring a girl home for mom, and like just eating as much pasta and getting all the spaghetti sauce on his shirt. And it's just like, this isn't really a great gag. Like I'm not having a fun time with this part of the movie anymore. Yeah. So it's just like, okay. But I would, if that brings me to what I'd recommend it or refute it. And I'm like really, really on the fence on this one, but I feel like I'm going to refute it. Just because it has like that humor that like your dad would show you and be like, isn't this funny? And I think that mentally I was watching it with my dad when I watched it. Cause I was like, okay, yeah, some of these things I could see them being funny, but then it would get to like a stretch of 10 minutes where I was like, no, not doing it for me. Not right now. Sorry. I was way more into the premise and the promise that it had than I was into the actual movie. But hopefully somebody remakes it and does a better job and does something with it or sees it and is inspired to do that. I'd be really rad to see that story explored a lot more.
Cool. Ryan, what do you got for us?
My daughter has been homesick, and she and my wife have been crawling through DC and Marvel movies all the last few days, last like 3-4 days. And I tried to squeeze in something else, like, something new, so I had something to talk about. So I watched Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles : Mutant Mayhem, which came out this year.
Boys, where have you been? We're just running errands.
That's it?
Look, we're really sorry, Splinter. Some of the guys wanted to get pizza, and I tried to talk them out of it.
You ratted us out.
Hey, don't use that word that way.
I mean, it's 2023.
Sorry, Dad. Hey, guys, if we weren't monsters that were shunned by society and we could do what we wanted, What would you guys do?
Go to high school. Maybe get a girlfriend.
Can you imagine that?
Not likely.
Police are baffled by the recent crime wave led by Superfly.
We take out Superfly, and then everyone will think we're cool. They'll accept us. We can't stop him.
We gotta try.
Enough talk! I dream about fighting every night.
You've got a rage problem, right?
It's not a problem!
I heard some decent things about it. It kind of flew under the radar. It made money because kids' movies make money enough that I think it has a sequel in production. Probably, it might be the kind of thing that ends up in production hell. It's hard to tell. And I kind of already look back on animation throughout the year. As we get to the end of the year, I kind of want to see where I felt like this one fit in. And I was, honestly, pleasantly, maybe not necessarily surprised, but like pleased with the movie, I guess. And my family all enjoyed it. I will say, after all of the movies and TV shows that my daughter had been watching the last 3 days, I threw in this, and she tried to veto it, and she got put down 3-1 that like we're gonna watch it. My son and wife were like maybes, and that was enough, I guess, to overrule her hard no. And then towards the end of the movie, the turtles are like in actual peril, and something's going to happen to them or whatever. And she's actually sitting there like tense, like, oh no, or whatever. And I was like, oh, now you care about them. And she's like, I didn't know the movie was going to be good. I thought it was going to be bad. So that at least gives you, an idea of what this is. It is interesting because it's very stylized, and it's kind of following and this is Nickelodeon Studios, so Paramount is the company. It's following some of the Mitchells versus the Machines and Spider-Verse, blending CG animation with some hand-drawn things and a lot of stylized shots to try to give it just a completely unique look. It's a lot of like scribbles and scratches that are kind of on everything. Like every light source has like doodles in it, essentially, to make it look like it's kind of like drawn on there. And so yeah, there's a lot of little things like that. All the humans are like really ugly. I don't know why, but all the humans have like misshapen heads. Yeah, it was kind of an odd choice. Other than like April O'Neil, who's mostly normal, like everyone else is weird. The turtles, I would say this is like the furthest from Eastman and Laird I think I've ever seen the Ninja Turtles. Because I will say the Michael Bay Turtles have all of the like, we're dark, man, look at how dark we are of Eastman and Laird comics. But original comics, it was black and white. It tended to be much more about just kind of like the action and violence, and you couldn't tell the difference between any of the turtles the way that the cartoon gave you, what you needed in the 90s to buy toys, some like clear character archetypes and color schemes and all that. Here, each of the turtles even has a really stylized like body profile and elements on them that make them stand out even more. They're very much played as kind of stupid-ish teenagers. They're pretty terrible at everything they do. This is like the early James Bond or the Batman. They kind of like fail at everything as they go and like somehow manage to barely succeed. So Raphael is bigger, like a lot bigger than the other ones. He like stands a little bit taller and he's much broader, and he's missing a couple teeth. Donatello is like a little bit leaner. He has glasses, which I was trying to figure out how Splinter got glasses or got prescriptions or whatever. But then hold on, Michelangelo has braces, so I was like, okay, I could figure out how he got glasses, but I don't know how he learned dentistry and orthodontics. Yeah,
Smart
so then
rat,
Michelangelo is like shorter and a little bit like wirier, and then Leonardo's kind of like regular-ish, I guess, against all these other crazy archetypes.
Regular build.
Yeah, regular-ish. And even within it, like Donatello has like stickers all over his bow, like that he's stuck on from things, right? Kind of like his style, right, that he's bringing to it. And so it was like interesting to see how much personality they were giving them just in character design, to kind of differentiate from the other things. And then obviously we have like just the style of it with all the sketchiness and all that really gave it something else. So I think just that it's visually very interesting. it really is focusing on this. The turtles like want to be out in humanity, but know that like they're monsters, they're weird looking, but they're still obsessed with trying to do it. And they have this idea of like, oh, if we become heroes, like people would like us for being heroes, and then they'll accept us. And their end goal is to get to go to high school. Like that's their aspiration.
Yeah.
They end up finding out that there are other mutants that are around that they didn't know about, because like the open to this is that the guy who's developing the ooze, he's actually already made like, the other characters that you probably know, like Rocksteady and Bebop, but also the ones that are even less remembered, like the fucking crocodile and the manta ray and shit. Like they're all out there. And then they drop the ooze and the turtles get made, but they don't know about all that. And so the other mutants essentially are wanting to turn everything into mutants, and then that way humans will die or become
It's like
slaves or
the
pets
X-Men
or whatever.
plot. Like it's
Yes,
like
yes,
Magneto's.
it's Magneto's plan. If everyone's mutants, then no one is special.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess. And the turtles have this like soft spot, I guess, for humans for no particular reason other than I guess
They've always
it sounds
wanted to
wrong
belong.
to kill all of them. Yeah, they want to be part of it.
Why don't they want to fit in with other turtles?
Yeah. I guess they do. I guess they're just accepted by other turtles, or as far as you can tell, you're accepted by other turtles. Are they turtles? Are they tortoises? That's never been clear to me either. So yeah, overall, it's one of those you know where it's going. Like kind of all of the beats are there. You know where it's going. It has its little funny moments, or definitely things that kind of made me laugh. It has this running gag about how Splinter is afraid that they're going to get milked. He's like, the humans are going to get you. They're going to take you to the laboratory and they're going to milk you. Like that's always
like his whole fear. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh my god.
And it's like several times the turtles will be like, we don't have nipples. Like I don't know what you think is going to happen. And it pays off. So it's like a good gag to have a running gag and then have it like come back and then actually pay off well. So like I appreciated that. Like it actually did that well to where I could enjoy it. So it's it's a good pass. It's not an excellent movie. It's not a go out of your way, you have to see this. As far as like Ninja Turtles stuff goes, the only other thing I've watched of Ninja Turtles that I like legitimately liked was the 2007 movie TMNT, as the one that isn't Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles : something.
Yeah.
Just TMNT, because it actually kind of nailed having some characters, some characterization, like growth, like all that kind of stuff, and was it was right in between. I don't know exactly how literally between, but between the like live action and the cartoons that were kind of like over the top and really were just there to sell shit, and Michael Bay's over the top in a completely different and wrong direction. The 2007 movie kind of got like buried in there, and there was some TV shows that kind of followed its pattern that I thought were enjoyable. And this, I hope, kind of starts something to kind of follow the theme. I don't know again that I'm like gonna look out for it to be like, oh, here's the other Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle movies coming out, like I am for Spider-Verse. Like I cannot fucking wait for the next one of those. But maybe it's like maybe they could build on it and get something that does get to a really strong story, and you can kind of put aside the stupidity of like what the characters are. So it's like a goodish starting point. So I give it like a pass, a recommend.
Yeah. I saw this movie as well. I saw it in theaters, and yeah, I liked a lot of the details in each frame. It definitely is something that like you can tell that the artists have put a lot of care into arranging like villain lair and hero lair and like all these other places. They go to establishments where like anything can kind of be used in a fight and it ends up being picked up. And there's sort of this fluidity that you're like, it's not just punching with fists or the turtles using their weapons all the time. There is this, anywhere they go, there's kind of like a kinetic usage of the environment.
Throwing wrenches and chairs and kicking things into people. And there's a whole like, they're inside a garage and there's a whole thing where the guy with the car keeps trying to run him over, and then he's hitting other stuff, and then he starts like going in circles, like he gets stuck looping, like Tokyo drifting around them, as they say.
Yeah. And like I appreciated those parts of it, but I think I'm just so like burnt out on Turtles storylines of wanting to belong and be part of like human society that I'm just like, can we just get past that and start where the humans have already accepted them to some degree, and we just move on and do some other story. I would much prefer that to let's find our home and our family again for like the fucking 8th time in whatever movie iteration they go through.
Maybe we're almost there because we finally learned we don't have to kill Uncle Ben and Batman's parents. Like we can just get started.
Yes, that's exactly right.
So you want the world where like they've been accepted by humanity and now they are being like used by the federal government to go and force terrible things on minority groups or something.
Yeah, Gymkhana.
Espionage in foreign countries.
Yeah.
Yes, that's exactly. Or I'd like to see, what is it? There's that video game Battletoads. Dixon, I don't know if you ever played that. But it's basically like it was a response to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. There was like a Battletoads game where it was about 3 toads and they were all like really in your face 90s, like Rash and Pimple and like some other shit.
Yeah, their names, yeah.
And you're just like, all right. And they made a modern iteration of that game where they like it literally starts with one of them has a desk job and it's just you pushing keys and sending emails to Susan. And he's like, I fucking hate this job. I wish I could do anything other than this. And that's how it starts. And I'm like, I want the Turtles to have terrible corporate jobs and like be like, this is not what we wanted. Do you guys remember when we lived in the sewer? That was way better than this fucking trash. And
we want them to go back to their glory days. Yeah, they get the band back together.
I would love to see those arcs, the existential crisis of now you fit in with human society, see how shitty it
is. So I did not see this. It's written by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. John, you mentioned that they were kind of telling the same story that some of the previous movies have. Did the script feel better or more interesting than any previous, Turtle movies?
It is pretty much paint by the numbers, like that. It's for kids, so it's clear. Like, okay, they're gonna do the thing and then be heroes and be accepted and go to high school, like we told you at the beginning. And there's not really gonna be this like. There is some like character growths, but it's kind of what you expect. Splinter is constantly telling them don't go anywhere out with the humans, and then he learns like it's okay, and he sees the bad that he was doing by holding them back, right? Like kind of like what you would expect, kind of the regular beats. Something that shows through, I think, in the writing is that it really hits the like pop references hard. I think because it's like these are teenagers, like it really is trying to be like, hey, these are teenagers and this is kind of how teenagers talk. It ends up being it's a little bit more like this is how Kevin Smith talks. But like, there is they say sus and they say Riz a couple of times. I'm not sure if it's like correctly written or just there to be like that's what kids say these days. And then there's just a bunch of like movie, video game, like whatever references that are kind of just like thrown in for stuff. They watch Ferris Bueller, like straight up watch Ferris Bueller and get shots of Ferris Bueller at one point.
Like animated like, Ferris Bueller, or
no,
they just show
just straight up
movie?
Ferris Bueller. They go to this, there's like a movie in the park and it's Ferris Bueller and it's the scene where he's like taking over the parade. And they're like, see, when you get to high school, you can just take over parades anytime you want. It's awesome.
That's funny.
Yeah, I felt like some of the jokes were really punchy too. Like they just land really well. There were some gags that were pretty great. And like,
yeah,
April O'Neil has, it's also like interesting because I don't think I've ever seen another Turtles iteration where April O'Neil isn't as confident or in her own element. Like in any other movie or show, she's already like a journalist. She's already reporting. She's doing all that. But in this one, she's like a teen in high school who's part of the AV club. And she wants to be a hard-hitting journalist, but she has terrible stage fright and is afraid of being on camera. And it makes her really nauseous when she's on camera.
Why doesn't she try to become a print journalist?
Yeah,
that's what she starts doing. She's like, she goes, I'm just going to do, they tell her, they're like, oh, you could be on TV. She's like, no, I'm not going to do that. I am going to just do print.
I'm just going to do, so it's kind of like her arc is like transitioning from print to like being on camera and actually needing to, like the moment calls for her to be on camera and she has to like rise to that kind of occasion. You can tell it's going to go there, but it's still like something I haven't seen in the Turtles like stories told. It was nice to have that kind of vulnerability in a character that's usually just one note. She's always there because she hangs out with the turtles and she's there to be shocked that they're turtles.
You need a human liaison.
Yeah. So
cool. So Ryan, you were recommending this.
Yeah, I recommend it. Yeah, I think that like kids will absolutely enjoy it, and like even people who are iffy on Ninja Turtles will probably have fun with it because it is funny and it's really an interesting style and how it's stylized. So yeah, it's a recommend.
Yeah.
Cool.
Does it make the like top 5 animated movies this year? Probably not.
Right now, fire them off. Rapid fire. Top 5 animated movies of the year. Go.
Dude, Spider-Verse is so fucking good. I watched that again.
It's all 5 of them.
I said rapid fire, Ryan.
He said it's all 5.
And Miyazaki does have a movie coming out in December that I'll need
to see.
So
Yeah.
I'm waiting on that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Cool. So it's just going to be those two repeated a few times.
Yeah, it's like mostly Spider-Verse back and forth. I don't know. I don't have high hopes for Wish or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
Cool. So I am going to talk about a movie that I saw at Austin Film Festival this past week. Austin Film Festival happens every October, like the last week of the month, and it's a festival I always enjoy. It's very different than South by Southwest, where South by is pretty much all new movies premiering there, with some that have premiered at Sundance and are getting shown again at South by. But it's a lot of new stuff. And the quality is overall pretty solid at what you're going to see at South by. With Austin Film Festival, you have kind of two types of movies. On the one hand, you have movies that have premiered at international festivals already, such as Toronto or Cannes or Venice, and that have gotten a lot of acclaim there and then are showing here in Austin at Austin Film Festival before they go out to theaters. They already have distribution at this point. They've been picked up. And, they're going to get a theatrical run. The other type of movies are very small independent things that are premiering at Austin Film Festival that are probably never going to see the light of day beyond the festival. And, 1 out of every 5 of those is really incredible. And you're like, oh man, I'll never be able to see that again. And 4 out of the 5 are like, I see why that didn't premiere at another film festival and it premiered here. There's also the last couple of years, there's been a very small middle group that's growing a little bit on stuff that is premiering at Austin Film Festival, but that is actually pretty solid and might have a chance to get a life on streaming. But the movie that I watched that I want to talk about is called Fingernails.
Have you guys taken the test?
Yeah, 3 years ago. We were positive. Felt like a weight had been lifted.
I founded this institute to take the risk out of love. No more uncertainty, no more wondering if you've chosen the right partner, no more divorce. We were the first to build the machines to conduct the test, to make the bond of love stronger.
Can I ask you something? Why do you work at the institute?
Maybe understand love a little better.
I think it's normal to get into a bit of a routine.
I think relationships should be worked on every day. I was wondering if it was possible that one person could be in love with 2 people at the same time.
It's a biological impossibility.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. I need to tell you something.
That I believe is now available on Apple TV Plus if you have that. And if you are lucky, it may be showing theatrically in your town. Fingernails is written and directed by Christos Nikou. I'm not familiar with his work. It's the first film that I've seen of his. But it stars Jesse Buckley and Riz Ahmed. So I was really excited to go see it because I really enjoy both of those actors. We obviously talked about Sound of Metal on this podcast a month or 2 ago, and we all gushed about how good Riz Ahmed was in that. Jessie Buckley plays the lead. Her name is Anna. She is in a serious relationship with Ryan, played by Jeremy Allen White, and they are they've been in a serious relationship for a while. They live together, and things feel a little bit complacent. And Anna seems to want more out of their relationship, and Ryan seems very content with where things are and not really looking to kind of further what they're doing. They live in a kind of a dystopian present where there is a company that has developed a love test. Not like the arcade love tester where you like grab the thing and it tells you you're a dead fish or whatever. But the way this test is conducted is you and your romantic partner go into a facility and you have a fingernail removed, not like trim the fingernail. They put some pliers on the end of your fingernail and yank the fuck out of it and pull it out of your finger. And they put, your 2 fingernails in these little dishes and in this microwave type machine and run a test. And the test either returns 0%, 50%, or 100%. If it's 0%, that means neither of you love each other. If it's 100%, that means both of you love each other. If it is 50%, that means one person loves the other person does not. But the test is not skillful enough to determine which person that is. So kind of a weird sci-fi concept. Doesn't really make a lot of sense when you pull it apart, but I think it's a very interesting construct for this movie and kind of delving into relationships and how they work. Anna and Ryan are one of the lucky couples who has actually gotten a positive test result. They got a 100% test, and this was a few years ago. And the positive test rates for couples is like 13%. So most couples get 0% or 50%. And then basically most couples in this society have kind of decided, well, if we don't get 100%, then we're not meant for each other. And we just need to go our separate ways and try to find somebody who we're compatible with and that we can be with long term. Occasionally throughout the film, you'll see somebody with a bandage on their finger, like out in society, and that means that they have just gotten tested. And depending on whether they seem happy or super depressed, you kind of know how that went for them. There are also some other couples that have decided, I don't really think that's for me. Like, that sounds, I'd rather just figure life out on my own and not, kind of do whatever the test tells me to do. So Anna has recently been let go from her job as an elementary school teacher. The school closed down, and so she's applying around to other jobs and, mostly is looking at schools, but ends up applying for a job at the Love Institute, which is a somewhat new institution that has bought some testing machines, and they are developing exercises for couples to perform together in order to establish a bond of love between the couples. So different types of trust exercises and different things like that. And she is really fascinated by this idea and applies there. Luke Wilson plays the guy who runs the Love facility, and she ends up getting hired there and trains with Riz Ahmed's character, whose name is Amir. And so she is kind of shadowing him as he is working these classes with these couples and trying to get them trained. And so, they're working with these couples for, 4, 5, 6 weeks. They're doing all these exercises. They're trying to get there. And then they perform the tests on these couples. And sometimes they pass and sometimes they don't. And, so Jessie Buckley's character gets really invested in some of these couples. And then, she's, they got a 0% test. They're not going to make it. And it's hard for her to kind of adjust to that. Meanwhile, her and Amir start to bond as they are working together and have some kind of affections for each other. So is kind of really interested in exploring that, and she likes spending time with Amir. Meanwhile, her relationship at home is not going that well, despite the fact that they have a positive test from a few years ago. So the movie is really exploring kind of what it is to be in a relationship and why people stay together or what they need to see. Like, does it take some sort of outside affirmation or, cultural, norm to stay with somebody? Or, can you just say, fuck the test, I don't care, and be in a relationship with somebody that you think is right for you? Or maybe engage in a relationship that maybe you do have some doubts about, but you want to take the risk and, not worry about what the test tells you to do. This movie was really well written, and it's incredibly acted. Jessie Buckley and Riz Ahmed are some of the best actors on the planet, and they do an incredible job and have really great chemistry together. So yeah, I don't want to really give too much away of kind of how it develops, but it really is a character piece, kind of focusing on mostly these two people and kind of the worlds around them, and using this sci-fi device to kind of explore relationships and what they mean and how different people think about and value them.
If that was the option, I would 100% be like, I'm waiting on 2.0, where it's like a little bit less of
they take the cuticle, they just like snip one off with a
just
clipper.
a little, it gets easier.
It's interesting, when you started to tell the synopsis, I thought this was going to go like into lobster territory, where there's a mandate of having to do this or something, but it doesn't sound like there is any pressing need between Buckley and Ahmed to like be in a relationship to like pass a test or any of that. Is this much more of is this like a slow burn? Is this more of a slow cinema thing where we just kind of see the relationship flourish in the sci-fi setting, or is it a little more paced out?
Yeah, I wouldn't call it slow cinema. Like it's definitely a character piece and is more about the characters than it is about the plot points. But with the sci-fi premise, there is plot there and things that are occurring that are kind of driving the story forward. It's a lot of kind of conflict internally with Jessie Buckley as she is dealing with the relationship at home that she is not thrilled about where it's going, but she has the affirmation from society that it's the right thing for her to do because she has the positive test result. Meanwhile, being attracted to Riz Ahmed's character and wanting to explore that, but being worried about leaving what she has, and wondering if it's possible for her to have a successful relationship with a different person. She has a conversation with Luke Wilson at one point where she's like, is it possible to have a positive test with two people? And he's like, no, that's not possible. We've never seen that before. So everything around her is telling her that her comfortable relationship that she's always been in is the correct choice, but she's not sure if that's what she wants to do.
I think it's interesting giving it like a scientific angle of a story that you would normally have where two people that seemingly love each other, but the relationship doesn't work. You could always like look at it through the lens of like, well, maybe they didn't really, maybe they didn't really love each other. They weren't made for each other since it didn't work. But giving it that sci-fi angle of like, no, they were in love, that it is, that, but the relationship doesn't work is like an interesting setup. Yeah.
Yeah. And I don't know, I think it's an interesting kind of analysis of, I think sometimes it's easy to get in a relationship with someone because it's convenient, or because, oh, you both like went to college together and you have like similar family backgrounds, you have the same religion, or like you're into some of the same things. And then like all the people around you are like, oh, you're perfect together. You should definitely be together. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's the right decision. Right. And I think it's kind of using this scientific sci-fi aspect to approximate that. And, her boyfriend at home is the same race that she is, like kind of seems to be from the same socioeconomic background. And, Riz Ahmed's character is a different race from a very different background, different, class upbringing and all of that. And, that's the, oh, well, I don't know if society is giving me the rubber stamp on this one. So.
Yeah, it sounds like an interesting meditation on monogamy too, and sort of like the finality of hey, you found the one, like this is it. Whereas most like relationships, friendships, even beyond intimacy, just they change. Like you can't help it, but like day to day, you're a different person. So I'm interested to check this one out. So it's already on Apple TV right now.
I believe it's on Apple TV Plus right now. It's not like you can't rent it on Apple. I think you have to have an Apple TV Plus subscription.
There's free trials, right, everybody?
Yeah. It's also pretty cheap. It's one of the cheaper streaming services. So like if you get it for a month and pay like $8 or whatever, like that's not bad to just watch one movie.
Wait until Killers of the Flower Moon's on there.
There you go.
And then go right through it.
And I would say I feel like this premise I've established makes you think the movie is going to end a certain, like, I can hear myself saying this and think, oh yeah, definitely the movie's going to end a certain way. I think the movie is a little bit smarter and more complex than you think it's going to be, given the premise of the film. And I think it's worth watching and exploring these characters and engaging in the ideas that the movie is putting in front of you. So
nice. I wanted to say, this is my first AFF I also got to go to. Dixon and I got to watch a few movies, and it was a good time. I wanted, if I could, just hop on the AFF bandwagon real quick and give some shout outs.
It's $75 to go see as many movies as you want, so it's pretty cool.
That's nice. You just have to make sure you have the time, and then you're good.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I went and saw, like Dixon and I both we watched First We Bombed New Mexico. That was my first AFF film, and that was a heavy motherfucking film.
Very heavy.
It was like, yeah, I didn't expect it, but I wanted to shout that movie out. There's legislation that's being put forward next year, 2024, to instate some restitution for the people of New Mexico who have suffered like egregious health concerns and like lineages now of death and cancer due to the nuclear testing, with fucking Oppenheimer and everything. Like, it was a wild documentary that I highly recommend folks check out. it's gonna ruin your night. Just be aware.
Yeah.
And it's gonna make you mad. But
John and I saw it,
see.
and we walked out of the theater, and he was like, "What are you doing after this?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. Like, I need to go decompress. I think I might just go home."
Yeah, I like ended up just sitting in a dark room later that night. It was like, I just can't. I watched. What did I watch? The Glimmer Man that night for Schlocktober to bounce back. Some Steven Seagal to just balance out. It's like, and then the other movie comes out December 1st was The Bike Riders. It's Jeff Nichols' next film. And he took a lot of influence from Goodfellas and he was fascinated by this book that was all photography. It was a photographer who took pictures of this biker gang and he rode with them. They became like the second most notorious gang since the Hells Angels. So he fictionally based a biker gang off of them and kind of tells the story of like taking it from just being a fun club about riding bikes to like how fucking off the rails it got in the 60s and 70s. And it's got a stellar cast. It's Austin Butler, Tom Hardy. It's like just
Michael
amazing.
Shannon,
Michael
because
Shannon
it's a Jeff
is in
Nichols
it.
movie. Michael
Shannon is in it. Jodie Comer, who does like a phenomenal job.
Love Jodie Comer.
So yeah, I recommend that one too. December 1st, that's when it comes out in theaters. So go see it. Jeff Nichols was like, this is probably going to flop when it comes out. I was like, oh, Jeff, buddy, no, I'm going to do everything I can, man. It was fun. It was a great time. Like,
well, he's a very independent filmmaker. Like pretty much all the movies that he's made have been very small. I really like him as a director, and he hasn't made anything since 2016, I think. So I'm excited to check this out. And the last movie he made, Loving, I thought was not great. And he's made a bunch of really good stuff before that, like Midnight Special. Take Shelter is really good. Like he's made a lot of really good stuff. So I'm excited to see his new thing.
Yeah. He talked about, cause this one was on Disney's bankroll. They funded this. And so he talked about kind of like them helping in the editing process. But it still ended up being very much like director's stamp of approval. He liked what came out of it. He was like, they didn't interfere too much. They helped me clean up some of the pacing. And it was like, all right, cool. Disney didn't fuck up too much in this. But I enjoyed it. Had a good time.
That's cool. You also saw one more movie at Austin Film Festival, John, with me, Last Straw.
Yes, which I also
you really liked.
Really liked, yes. Last Straw, which I also recommended, was a first-time director, I think. Wasn't it? Or was it like
maybe first-time feature director?
First-time feature director, I think was what it was. But that was like kind of like, if you're into movies like You're Next, like those slasher films where, it all takes place in one area and there's like, us versus them sort of situation going on. It does a lot of subversive things to that particular plot line. It's about like a teenage manager of a diner. Her dad leaves her in charge of the diner overnight. And during the day, she like some hoodlums come around and she's like, get the fuck out of here. I'm going to call the cops. She like, tries to fake it. Then she's also making all of these hot-headed management decisions as a teen, like firing people in the diner and like just causing all this kind of chaos. And so at night when like those teens come back, a lot kind of changes and there's like, masked assailants and whatever, but it did a lot of stuff that I really liked technically. And I liked it from a story perspective. Dixon said while he watched it, he had a Tiny Ryan moments where he was thinking like, that's not how that works. But there were
that's not how health insurance works. Yeah. I'm sorry. It's just not.
But there were other moments where like, it was just very upsetting. Like it really did a good job of being visceral and like just disturbing. So yeah, Last Straw was good as well. But yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, that was a good recommend or refute. We got some extra punches in there with some extra Austin Film Festival movies. Highly recommend if you're in the area, check out Austin Film Festival. It's a lot of fun. You get to see some big being like movies that were independent but have already been picked up for distribution that might be in the Oscar conversation. You can see that stuff before it hits theaters, or also you can just go to something random like Last Straw and end up being, holy shit, that was really good. And like, you may not have an opportunity to ever see that again. Like it just may die and never go anywhere from Austin Film Festival. So it's kind of a cool lightning in a bottle chance to see something that is just fascinating that you may otherwise not get to see. You may see some stuff that you don't like that's in that category of films that are premiering at Austin Film Festival. But I like the kind of, I don't know, thrift store aspect of it. You're just kind of like going and seeing random things and seeing how they turn out. And sometimes you end up seeing something that's really good. So cool. Well, I think that's going to wrap it up for us this week. We have a refute for
Deathrow
Game Show.
Yeah.
Definitely didn't forget the name of that movie. And Ryan has a recommend for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles : Mutant Mayhem.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's the one.
Well, and I am recommending Fingernails. So thanks for joining this week with me as always.
Ryan King, Cowabunga. That's what the Ninja Turtles say.
They say it with that exact enthusiasm.
Yeah, that's one of those things where it's like they now embarrassingly put it in somewhere.
And
John Garcia, I'm on my good movie kick for at least another few days, and then it's probably back into schlock, everybody.
I don't believe you.
We know.
You're going to bring more schlock next week. We know it, John.
Hey there, movie buffs, TV toughs, and all listeners in between. John here from the Afterthoughts podcast. I just wanted to drop in at the end of this episode and say thanks for listening. If you've got afterthoughts of your own to share, hit us up. You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at The Afterpod, or jump into a conversation on our Discord server. You can find info for this and more at theafterpod.transistor.fm. Thanks again for listening, and we'll catch you on the next episode.